My cat Grendel is here with me to talk a little bit about tomatoes. It's that time of year where you got some green tomatoes and you've got some red tomatoes. And you can certainly make some fried green tomatoes, but today I'm thinking about making some green tomato bread, kind of like zucchini bread. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use my zucchini bread recipe. It's gluten-free and it's got whatever kind of nuts I might have in the refrigerator. I think I've got walnuts. And I also have, I've got a couple different kinds of dried fruit. I think I'm going to use dried cherries. I'm going to figure that out when I get into the pantry. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between a green tomato and a red tomato. The red tomato has more lycopene in it, and the green tomato has more vitamin C in it. It's very similar to the difference between a raw tomato and a cooked tomato. A raw tomato has more vitamin C in it and less lycopene. A cooked tomato has more lycopene and less vitamin C. It's what happens chemically as you go along, as the tomato goes along anyway. So I'm not going to talk anymore about the tomatoes. I'm going to get into the kitchen, and I'm going to also take my little yellow tomatoes, which are lower in acid than a red tomato, and I'm going to make a roasted dip, and I'm going to make my green tomato bread, and we'll see how it all comes out. Got the tomatoes ready to go into the oven, and so what I've done is I sliced up the red tomatoes in addition to the little yellow tomatoes, and I covered them with garlic and a little bit of salt and a nice olive oil. So the olive oil I used is an organic, cold extracted, unrefined, medium heat. It's a good olive oil. I don't generally cook with olive oil, but when making something with tomatoes, it just really needs to be done. So that's what I did with the tomatoes that are going into the oven at 300 degrees for about an hour. So that's a really low temperature, and I want that to caramelize. And it's really going to make something tasty. So I'll be back in an hour to show you what it looks like. So I'm ready to make my green tomato bread. And my husband has graciously offered to help me. In case you didn't notice, I was a little bit shaky before. My tripod finally gave out. So I've ordered a new one, but for the time being, this is what you got. So I have melted half a stick of butter. I thought I had 2 cups of almond flour, because that's what I like to use with all my, like the zucchini bread or cornbread. I didn't have that, so I mixed in a cup of cassava flour with that. I have 4 eggs that I'm going to beat in with the butter, and this is really just whisk that together. And I'm going to now finish adding my actually I'm going to add my sugar. Now, you know I don't really use sugar. This is monk fruit, and I've got 2 kinds of monk fruit in here. I've got the one I usually use, and I also have some swerve. So I'm going to get that broken up. And Penny is complaining. She really doesn't like when the attention's off her. Or she's talking to the neighbor dog, I don't know which. There we go. She's talking to the neighbor dog. Okay, here's my vanilla. That's going to be a teaspoon of this. Penny! She's so good. Oh, now she's going to come. She thinks I want something. All right. No, honey. Oh, who's a good girl? All right. Here's the baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and of course the recipe will be on the website. 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I'm going to mix those in with my wets. And as soon as that's smooth, I'm going to mix in the green tomato, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I did with this. So I chopped the tomato up. I didn't like the consistency, so and I also took out most of the seeds. So you can see this is, I ran it through the food processor to make it almost like a salsa, but actually even a little bit smaller. And I feel like that's going to make a better bread. It's more like the shredded zucchini that I usually use, well, that I always use when I make a zucchini bread. So you can take a look at the batter. It's looking like a cake batter or a muffin batter. And into that I am tossing the green tomatoes. I decided not to drain off the liquid that was in with it because I think it's going to make it a little more moist. Maybe I'm wrong. I've never done this before. This is a complete experiment. Made it very wet. So we'll see. To that I am adding about half a cup of dried cherries and a cup of walnuts. All of this is going to go into a prepared bread pan, and I'm going to bake it at 350 for about an hour. Now this looks like more than enough for one big bread pan. I may do a small bread pan and a large bread pan. And this is going to be served to my family tomorrow, so I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out of the oven, and then we'll have the real test tomorrow. So I'll be back.
And try butter, see what it does.
Okay, but you think that green tomato soup
never
is
know what it is.
soup? God help me.
I would never know what it is.
Okay, I'm going to start over. It's a bit of a melee with my family here, trying to get my mom or somebody to say something about the food with everybody talking around them. So I'm going to just wrap up by saying this is all that's left of the roasted tomato dip, and here it is on a piece of bread. And it is really flavorful. And taste the garlic. Tomatoes are nice and soft. It's the flavor is just intensified like anytime you roast something. Other thing is the green tomato bread, and this is all that's left of that. So this went home with everybody, the little bit that was left to divide. And this is how this looks. You can see the walnuts and the dried cherries in there, and it's really moist. Great flavor, wonderful texture, and my husband couldn't stop eating it. Would you like to say a word?
Yum.
One word, so that's all we have to say about that. Be on the website, so give it a try and enjoy.